Michelob Ultra Tuscan Orange Grapefruit. My God, America is imploding.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of Fanzone Debate. We're back after the explosive title match, Kirk versus Rue. You just saw that a couple weeks ago, and now we're back for Barr, Richard. It's going to be interesting. Barr is an underrated player, I would say. He comes in and he knows how to talk and throw his hands and yell about things, and that's all you need to succeed in this league, really. And on the other side of things, Richard, also quite underrated, actually. In Richard's wins, they've been quite dominant, actually. He's very good when he really puts his mind to it. So I'm excited to see what happens, because these are both underrated players that I think both deserve to have another win on their record. Nick, you are here as well. Thank you for being here. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Your enunciating is on point today. You're like Gary Oldman in that episode of Friends where he just spits on Joey the whole time. But doing great. Thanks for having me.
Can of tuna. Okay, so Brian, you are here as well. Thank you for being here, Brian. And what do you think about this match?
I'm interested to watch this match. I've been here for a Richard debate. I have not been here to watch Andrew debate, although he has opinions, that's for sure. And I'm anxious to watch him either get all up in arms or just third pout. Either way works for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, we are going to get into the match. We'll bring in our competitors, starting with Mr. Barr. Barr, welcome. You're here to yell about things. How do you feel?
My voice is sore from something I recorded just before this, so maybe yelling won't be on the table, but I will definitely talk in circles.
Fair. Also, here is Richard. Richard, how do you feel about the matchup?
It's gonna be fun. I've known Andrew for a little bit. Good dude. Both love the theater life. Both, been around the theater life. I'm really tired, exhausted, just work from months and months of doing graveyard shifts at 7-Eleven. But hey, I'm good. It's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, let's get into it now. All right, we are going to get right into the match. This is how it's going to work. There are 4 categories, 4 prep questions based off those categories that the competitors drafted. Then at the end of the question, during the question, they will have a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of all that, Brian, Nick, and I will get our handy-dandy boards, write who we think won the point. Best 2 out of 3 wins the point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. Gentlemen, any questions as we get into it?
No.
Okay, then the first category we are going to debate this evening is brought to you by Mr. Schwartz. He drafted it. It's in the category of the MCU. The question is, if Marvel had to recast Doctor Strange today, who would you cast in the role? So, Richard, you drafted this. That means you get to go first. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Benedict Cumberbatch has made Doctor Strange's role his own. Like, it started off, not many people were sure if he was right for the part, but over time in the other movies, he has firmly accepted the role as Doctor Strange. Now, for some unreal reason, if he would ever to be recast, fans would have to cast someone that the fans would know. Fans could know they could do the role well and just as good, if not better. And I think famous enough for people to draw attention. So let's just go big or go home. I say Leonardo DiCaprio, the next Doctor Strange. This man can do no wrong. He has done multiple genres of film, mystery, sci-fi, comedy. Fans love him. He screamed his way to an Oscar. This man can do no wrong. He's just magic himself. Leonardo DiCaprio, my pick.
I think about 6 seconds early. Magic himself. I like it. Barr, you now have a minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So for someone to play Doctor Strange, they have to have this otherworldly appeal. They have to have this this presence that makes you believe that they could perform mystical magical arts if they needed to. And I present to you Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy, as many people know, has been on Peaky Blinders. He was the Scarecrow in Batman Begins. And he just kind of has this ethereal presence to him that somebody who deals in this kind of magical world needs that presence of. But not only that, Cillian Murphy is a fantastic actor, as proven by the things that I've mentioned before, also things like Dunkirk. And he's just a really, really talented person who fits this role better than DiCaprio. And I yield my time.
Okay. All right. DiCaprio, Murphy, 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So DiCaprio doesn't kind of have that otherworldly presence to him. He kind of has that like typical Hollywood handsome kind of look to him. Like I don't believe him to be like a master of magical arts.
Have you seen the man act? It is magical. He has done so much. He has so much range in his films, from Catch Me If You Can, Django Unchained, Wolf of Wall Street, Don't Look Up. He has done so many, Inception, done so many different types of roles. Whereas Cillian Murphy, his main roles are usually side characters or villains. Like he always in his movies comes off very timid. And for Doctor Strange, someone who has to have a certain presence, a leadership presence that I don't think Cillian Murphy has, whereas Leonardo DiCaprio definitely has that leadership presence.
So you know who else played side characters? Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth. They were all kind of like side character actors. And that's what Doctor Strange is. He's a character role. Also, I'd like to point out that he's not done DiCaprio, you said he's done all of these movies. You know what he hasn't done? A comic book movie. Guess what Cillian Murphy's done? He's done a comic book movie.
Yeah, a comic book movie that they kind of cheapened that role in every single one of the Nolan trilogies after the first one, where it's become very cheapened and off.
Not in, really.
Yeah, exactly. You need someone who people are going to know, people who's going to draw seats. Cillian Murphy is not going to draw people to come see this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio has. And you talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor. These were characters at first. Of course, they can cast Chris Pratt or Chris Hemsworth because these were roles that a lot of people other than comic book fans didn't know too much about. I mean, I'm a comic book fan. I didn't know anything really about the Guardians of the Galaxy till the movie, so it's easier acceptable to bring someone. Plus, they had Batista, they had Zoe Saldana, they had other people, actors and actresses that were world known in movies and wrestling that people know that they would show up. Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper. These were roles that, people are going to show up for. No one's going to show up for Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, but here's the thing. First of all, the fact that Batista was in that was a major risk because he had never done a movie before. But
well, it was also a risk in itself.
You had your time, sir. You had your time, sir. Just because you can draw people in with names doesn't mean that the quality will be good. Look at so many blockbusters that have big names that failed. Assassin's Creed was like that. But DiCaprio, other problem with DiCaprio is DiCaprio tends to play himself. He plays a very similar character in every movie that he does. Cillian Murphy is a chameleon. He will fit into whatever roles that you want, like Inception, the movie you brought up.
A chameleon doesn't mean it makes his character his own. Leonardo DiCaprio makes his characters his own. You're saying that he plays only himself. Cillian Murphy does the same thing.
A chameleon? What do you mean a chameleon doesn't make things his own? John C. Reilly is a chameleon of an actor who can do comedy and drama and all that stuff. Cillian Murphy's the exact same way. Plus,
and also, sorry, go on. No, go on. I'll wait.
So here's the other thing. DiCaprio is a little bit of a control freak, and when it comes to Marvel, they can't really have someone who wants to have as much control because it needs to be a shared universe. That's why Edward Norton got kicked out.
Well, Robert Downey Jr. was also a control freak, and they loved him as Iron Man. He was the key figure in Iron Man, a key figure in the MCU, so he done really well. Leonardo DiCaprio has grown with age, has worked well with others. He has improved, not being as much controlled as he used to be. I mean, Cillian Murphy, just like I said, he comes off too timid. you need. I just don't think he's a strong. He's a good actor. Don't get me wrong. He is a very good actor. He just doesn't come. I don't think fans are going to seriously jump to go see Cillian Murphy. Where fans will come to see Leonardo DiCaprio, and you say Leonardo DiCaprio has the whole zone. He's a fucking Oscar award-winning winner. Not nominee. He's multiple nominees, but he won an Oscar. Has Cillian Murphy won an Oscar for any role?
That doesn't matter when other people like Chris Evans hasn't. RDJ, who you brought up, has not won an Oscar. Also, Robert Downey Jr. had to propel himself back in, so he had to behave himself in order to do that. And they built the MCU around his movie, so he had that say. Whereas DiCaprio is going to need more say in it, and he just can't get that.
Where do you get that information that he needs to have more say? Where is that coming from?
From previous movies that he's worked on, other people that have worked with him. Not saying that he's a bad guy, he just needs more control. Just Look Up was that kind of like that.
Okay, Barr, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So Cillian Murphy has this otherworldly presence to him. Like, he is a guy that can slip into multiple roles and you can believe him in anything. Plus, he also kind of has that mystical, magical look to him with the cheekbones and the eyes and all that. Whereas DiCaprio's kind of, as I said, stereotypical handsome boy. And just because DiCaprio is a bigger name doesn't mean he's going to give the best performance. We've seen big names in other things and they haven't done well. Cillian Murphy has shown incredible range. He's a team player. And just because, and as I said, we have seen other movies get lifted on their shoulders, Marvel movies specifically, by people who are not that well known. Cillian Murphy is a breakout star, and he's done comic book movies before, and he's a hell of an actor. He will nail this role.
Okay.
I yield my time.
All right. We'll bring in Richard. Richard, you now have 1 minute to close your argument.
Leonardo DiCaprio works hard, probably more than anyone else in the acting industry. He puts his heart and soul in every movie he's done. I don't think he's ever done a bad performance. He might have been in movies that were not as good as others, but his performances have always been fantastic. Cillian Murphy, he's good. I wouldn't say great. He's good, but he doesn't have that presence where it's going to draw people to the audience. And my opponent says that just because a bigger name doesn't matter. Yeah, it kind of does when it comes to someone who has to replace Benedict Cumberbatch, who's made that role his own. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio has proven time and time again he has been able to adapt not only to a role, but to excel at it. Cillian Murphy has done comic book roles, and and his character role that he's done was cheapened throughout every movie. Leonardo DiCaprio is a breakout Oscar award winner. He does his thing well, fantastic. He's magic himself. He will just do what others can't, especially against Cillian Murphy.
Time. All right. Bring in them judges. How we doing, judges?
I just want to say that before Benedict was ever even cast, I always said Pierce Brosnan should have been Doctor Strange. Just saying.
He's Dr. Fate now.
It's true. Okay. We're good, everybody? Yes? We look like it? Okay. I'm going to go first. I went with Barr. I thought Barr's takedown of the whole Oscar thing was because Richard kept bringing up the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio is like an Oscar winner. I thought Barr's takedown of there have been people with big award stuff before that hasn't worked. That shouldn't be something. I thought this overall devolved into who is the better worker, who is better at being a team player and will work with Marvel. Overall, I thought though that Barr's pitch of Cillian Murphy being a character actor, being able to go in, and there's been lots of other MCU lead actors or actresses that weren't well known, and that Cillian Murphy could do the same thing. So I go with Barr. Nick, where are you leaning? You're doing the Cody thing where you look like you're disagreeing with me.
No, no. Well, yes, because I picked the other person that you did.
Okay, fair.
But no, I wasn't disagreeing with you. No, It was very close for me. There was a lot of things that I think were said by both people that didn't really matter, I think, to the argument at hand. I think both people got hung up on things that I don't really think overall affected it. I think the point that hit me most was Richard's thing about Cillian Murphy not necessarily being a person with the presence that a Doctor Strange needs. And how Leo has been a chameleon, even though it's Leo, he plays a bunch of different roles, he can fit that sort of thing. So that's why I went with Richard.
All right, Brian, you get to decide this one.
I kind of agree. Well, neither argument I thought was especially convincing because, like Nick said, there was a whole lot of talk about things that didn't matter. It devolved into a whole lot of, what the history of what these actors had or hadn't done, and then what these other actors had or hadn't done before this. Had nothing, and not a whole lot of why they would be good for this role, or else they talk about why they were a good draw for people and not why they would be good for the role itself. So it's kind of a toss up for me. What I finally decided to sway my argument was where Andrew kind of talked about how Cillian Murphy, he could, fit into the universe very well, whereas Leonardo DiCaprio is not. He said he wasn't a team player, but kind of the way his movies are mostly about him. He's kind of a control freak, those kind of things. So I ended up giving it to Barr.
Okay, so Barr wins the first point. We're going to move on to the next question, which is going to be in the category of actors and actresses. The question is, which Audrey Hepburn movie has the worst plot? So we are going to start with Barr, who drafted this. Barr, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
This was a tough one because a lot of Audrey Hepburn's plots are very simple, but they're told really well. However, Laughter in Paradise is an overcomplicated plot. So many things going on, and none of them land. And the overall theme of the movie gets wiped out the window at the end. So it's basically this guy dies. He was a rich man known for pranking people. How that made him rich, I don't know. And so he left 4 people in his will, and for each of them, he has instructed them to do something in order to get their share of the money. If they don't do it by a specific date, they don't get the money. One of them has to rob a bank. One of them has to work as a maid. One of them has to marry the first girl he talks to, and the other one has to commit a crime and go to prison for 28 days. Yeah, that's a lot, and it's kind of stupid.
Time. All right. We'll move over to Richard. Richard, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
The movie I chose was Two for the Road. Audrey Hepburn is one of the leads. It's about a married couple who go into France to celebrate a project that the husband has done. They have flashbacks of when, they first met. Their marriage is stale and boring. They both cheat on each other. They both kind of break up, get back together, leave France and Italy. Yeah, that's about the message of this film. It's a terrible plot. Worst Audrey movie that's plot-wise. I can see the rest of my time.
Okay. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Dude, your plot sounds fascinating as hell. Like, the writing may be bad, but the plot itself is super freaking interesting. 4 people have to do a task from a dead man who has a task that they're not, they're very uncomfortable to do. Sounds like a very cool, exciting, heist type of movie.
It's not a heist, though. That's the thing. Also, just because it sounds interesting doesn't mean that it actually is interesting.
But that's oh, sorry, go on. No, that's my bad.
No. It's not what plot sounds the least interesting. It is what plot is the worst. And honestly, this is just terrible. Nothing happens for most of them. And at the end, it all gets thrown out the window when they all find out that there is no money. It was a complete waste of a movie.
But things that happened in your movie were very exciting. The guy who tried to rob a bank ended up being a hero to stop some other bank robbers which was funny. Person who was supposed to work, the woman who's supposed to, work and, for like a month, she met this person. It was great. A guy who's trying to, rob, commit a crime, had, lost his wife, but found another love interest. Mine is basically they were together, they broke up, they kind of got back together, left France, and it was a bunch of flashbacks and nothing really happened.
So yours is not flashbacks. It's non-canonical. It's a broken timeline, sort of like Quentin Tarantino does a lot of. And those are bookends. But just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's bad. It's about a relationship. It's about the life of a relationship from the beginning to the end, told in a way that's non-linear.
And that's really way more boring than your film, which sounds like a lot of fun. It's like a Rat Race, and Rat Race was a lot of fun. It was an interesting plot, and I'm bringing my Rat Race from the 90s, that one, because I haven't seen the original Rat Race.
But if you can't pull off that plot, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if you could go. We're not talking about the bad writing. We're talking about the plot itself. The plot is way more interesting than just a couple together breaking up. I mean, it's like a worse, whatever the Adam Driver Scarlett Johansson movie. It's a worse version of that. But the difference is, what's that movie called, by the way? Sorry. I know it has
My movie?
No. The Adam Driver, the Scarlett Johansson movie.
Well, if you can't remember what that movie is, then you're not really comparing the two. They're not that similar, if this is your argument. But with my movie, one of them has to marry the first girl that he talks to. And you know what? He talks to someone, then he talks to someone else and has to marry her. So they're breaking their own rules of the movie.
And that sounds way more interesting than a couple getting together, breaking up, going back, leaving France. What makes your movie less plot-wise worse than my movie for plot-wise?
Repeat that for me, please. I lost you.
Well, why is your plot worse than mine?
My plot is worse than yours because it breaks its own rules. It overcomplicates itself in order to get things in short amount of time where they can't cover everything that they're trying to shove in there. Like a pointless romance that comes out of nowhere, goes nowhere, and does nothing.
You want to talk about pointless romance? Both of my characters cheat on each other, and that ended up being nothing. And again, that's you're saying your problem with your plot. That's not the problem with your plot. It's just the problem with the writing. Most people who saw this movie have commented the reason why my movie failed was because there was a lack of plot or no plot at all. Sure. And you're saying your movie is just bad writing, but the plot itself sounds super interesting. It's like Rat Race. It's like a heist movie. It's like a really cool, especially during that time in the 50s. I believe it came out in the 50s. Am I not mistaken?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really like ahead of its time in a sense. It's like a clever version of How He Steal a Million, but at the end, I mean, I love the movie.
Not really. So. The Marx Brothers kind of did that thing a lot, especially with the kind of comedy they were trying to do. It works for the Marx Brothers, doesn't work for this. But let's talk about that bank robbery. The dude does nothing. Like, even it meanders and it drags until crazy random happenstance. And it's not even like played out. Like, they don't show you like everything leading up to it. It just kind of happens. That's the movie. Things happen, rules get broken, and then at the end, it all means nothing.
My movie has a person breaking up, getting back together.
Getting back together. Strike it from the record.
Yeah, I know.
Richard, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
My opponent's movie, Laughter in Paradise, may have bad writing, may even have bad acting. Who knows? But the plot itself about a person who died, who's going to leave his money to 4 family members, and they have to do these weird tasks that they are uncomfortable doing, or they don't get the money at all, is a far better movie plot than my movie, where it's just about a relationship, getting together, breaking up, getting back again with. And my opponent says it's like a noir, like Quentin Tarantino. You're giving this movie way too much more credit. It was very boring, plain. It's a worse movie of the marriage proposal or the breakup. Even the breakup had better plot than this film. Laughter in Paradise may have bad writing. but the plot is far more interesting than what mine is. There's at least something going on, heist-wise, comedy-wise. Mine is just a pointless relationship.
All right, Barr, you now get to close your argument. 1 minute when you start talking.
It's not most interesting plot, it's worst plot. And mine has the worst plot. Two for the Road is a beautiful, heartbreaking tale of the lifespan of a couple having these ups and downs. And even when they're down at the end, they stay together because they know that they need each other and that their spirits are entwined. Just because it's told non-linearly, like Pulp Fiction, doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just a different way to tell the story. Mine breaks its own rules. It drags on. And at the end, nothing is achieved. It does nothing. This movie is about nothing. And I yield my time.
Okay.
I do appreciate you, Andrew, for, like me, giving up their time when they don't need it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't need it. Like, why would I?
Are we all ready?
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you get to start.
All right, so I have seen Two for the Road. I have not seen Laughter in Paradise. I know. Andrew kind of took a chance, like digging deep into something Audrey's kind of barely in, but it counts. I will say the disadvantage there, though, is I'm going purely by what I'm hearing here. And even from Barr's initial introduction of the movie, his movie sounded way better to me. I honestly went with Richard because I think that as far as for the discussion, how they explain the plots to me, I think that Laughter in Paradise sounded like the better movie plot-wise. I think that, like Richard said, it may not be about the execution, the acting, the writing may not have been there, but as far as the plot and what I'm hearing of what the plot was, Laughter in Paradise sounded better to me.
I also went with Richard. I thought exactly for the same reason of Brian. Richard just sitting there going, your movie sounds way more interesting than two people get together, break it up. Just like the way Richard was delivering it killed me. But also, I agree with Brian, just that Richard painted it very clear that, like, we're not talking about how the film was eventually executed. We're talking about the plot of the movie, and based on the plots, Barr's plot actually sounds like it has something, and the other one did not. So, Richard gets the point. Nick, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I was feeling the same way, like in terms of like Richard bashing, like it's not the performances, it's not all that, but the plot includes the whole plot, and Barr explaining like how it may sound like a good plot at the beginning and then it leads to nowhere. It was very more in depth. I could tell one of these people knew both these movies better than the other, so I went Barr.
Fair enough. Okay. So it is one apiece. We're going to get into the next question, which was drafted by Richard in the category of horror. The question is, what is the best trap in a Saw film? Richard, you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I chose the rack trap from Saw 3. This device, it ties to Tim's arms, both his arms, his legs, and his neck, and it slowly rotates each arm and leg one at a time, one body part at a time, till it fully goes around. And eventually it was his neck. Now, the goal of this was for Jigsaw to test Jeff, who was in the other room. Tim, who was strapped to the device, was a drunk driver who killed his child while driving, being intoxicated, and he got jail time, but not enough to. He got out early, and Jeff wanted revenge. He was planning to kill him, and the only way to save Tim was for Jeff to get the key, basically to forgive him. And I think one of the best things about a Saw trap is, will a person in this test learn their lesson, become a better person, and eventually at the end, even though he was too late, Jeff did forgive Tim for the death of his child. I concede the rest of my time.
Perfect. All right, Barr, we move over to you. 1 minute when you start talking.
There's a reason that the reverse bear trap is the trap that everyone knows outside of this franchise, even if they haven't seen it. It is very unique. It is very deadly. And honestly, it worked. It worked in Jigsaw's favor. I will break this down a little bit more, but other than the fact that it's just a real cool trap, I will go more in depth in the second part of this, so I yield my time.
Okay. Bear trap, rack trap, 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Andrew, you can go first.
Sure. So the reverse bear trap, honestly, it's just such a unique design that it's just an awe-inspiring creation that's horrifying to watch, because the lethality of it, plus how complicated it actually is to escape from, makes this such a better trap.
The rack trap is also very unique. And also it's very painful. I would say even more painful than the reverse bear trap, because if it failed, if Amanda would have died, it would have been instant. Like, she wouldn't have felt the thing. Whereas the rack trap does it one at a time, and he felt every single bone breaking. You hear that scream, you hear the pain, and then even Jeff, who was there, who was enjoying it at first, but then realized, like, this is not right. This man does not deserve to die. And he went to go get the key, and he was too late, unfortunately, but he eventually forgave him, which was the main message for Jigsaw. The main test for Jigsaw was forgiveness. And I'll let you go. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up Amanda, because she did escape. But later on in the franchise, we learned that Amanda has joined Jigsaw's side. So the trap worked for Jigsaw. It is more effective than the rack. And I want to point out something. You said that yours is unique. I would like to bring up the medieval torture creation, also called the rack, which also does the exact same thing. So uniqueness is dead for your argument.
It does not do the exact same thing. It doesn't twist. It just pulls. It does not twist. It pulls. This literally twists. And you're saying yours worked? No, it didn't work. Amanda, first of all, was a junkie. She would have killed multiple children just to get out of that thing. She was a junkie to begin with. And eventually, in the third Saw movie, she ends up cutting herself again. Like, so in that sense, the reverse bear trap failed, because she did not learn her lesson to not harm herself. And she eventually kills Jeff's wife, which initially causes her own death when Jeff shoots her, because he saw Amanda kill his wife, and he had to kill her. So yours did not even work in the long run.
So there is a variation of the medieval torture trap called the rack, which does twist the arms. There was two versions. There was the limb twist version and the pole version.
I'm sure there's a trap like the reverse bear trap in other horror movies I just have not seen.
I'm not bringing up horror movies. I'm bringing up actual reality, things that actually happened in real life. So uniqueness for yours, dead. No one's ever seen a reverse bear trap. And now, Amanda, when it comes to that, yes, it did work, because you bring up the two choices that they have to make. She does later on down the line make a choice. Even though she escaped that trap, it actually triggered like a reaction in her, leading to up to that part. Now, with the rack, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's a Home Alone, pull the string, something happens thing, and it cheats itself. Actually, it's rigged against it, because the moment you release the key from there, it's going to release the gun anyway. Doesn't matter how you do it.
There is no proof that this was going to thing, because this Jigsaw Jigsaw made it himself. Amanda from the other traps in that other movie, she did it was her own making.
And just because Jigsaw made it doesn't mean that Jigsaw can't cheat.
And I would say another knock on the reverse bear trap, you really couldn't see the fear in Amanda's face when she had it on. You could barely see it. Whereas the rack trap, you saw the fear, you saw the pain that he went. And no, you didn't. All you saw her do was trying to shake her head, trying to get it off. And she was a junkie. She would have killed someone anyway in any type of trap. It doesn't mean it's unique.
You can't see the fear in her? My God, bro, they zoom in on her eyes, which tell you so much, and her just writhing around. Oh my God, are you kidding me? That's not because she's happy to have that thing on.
But ultimately, I think what makes my trap the more effective trap is Jeff ultimately forgave Tim, which was the whole part of that test. He passed the test. It was more effective. Amanda got out of it, yes. He took a life. The whole point of these traps is to value life. She killed another person just to get that off, and that's not passing anything. And she ends up being psycho in the third film, which ultimately your trap failed in effectiveness. And whereas Jeff, even though he died in I think it was the fifth film, it wasn't his fault.
Oh, so he still died.
Barr, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So the reverse bear trap did its job multiple times, actually. In later films, it actually does kill someone. And then the first film, guess what? It worked in Jigsaw's favor. So it is the more effective trap. Whereas with the rack trap, first of all, it's not original. Second of all, it cheats. It cheats its players by making it still release the shotgun even when the key is removed. So that in itself does not make it an effective trap as much as it is just a cheat. So mine's the more effective trap. Mine's the more creative trap. Mine's the more interesting trap. And I yield my time.
Okay. Richard, 1 minute when you start talking.
My opponent keeps bringing up the key with the shotgun. It was not pointed at either Tim or Jeff, so it's not like it would have done anything. There's no proof that it was actually rigged if he would have taken it out. Mine is the best trap because, one, it's the most painful trap, which is the thing that brings fans to watch these Saw movies, is the torture of it. And it's way more torturable than the reverse bear trap, which looks scary, but the person, if they fail, would instantly die. Amanda, yeah, she got it off, but she ends up being psycho, which is ultimately what causes her to die in Saw 3, which is the failure of the trap, because the trap is meant to value life. And Jeff, he had multiple tests. I'm just talking about this test, but he valued life. He forgave the man who killed his son. That to forgive someone who killed your own child, it's the best trap. That it's a trap that if you're a parent, don't think you can forgive someone as easy as that.
Time. Sorry, Maggie's fucking laughing her ass off about something over here. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Not about you guys. She's watching TikTok, I think. Yeah, you're watching TikTok? Okay, get it. Okay. Okay. Nick, you get to lead this one off. You ready to go?
Hooray! Yeah, is everyone?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I hate Saw. Not a fan. Scary. Gross. That being said, I think Andrew Barr said a lot of interesting things about the one trap cheating, other things being similar to it, and how like the only slight variations on the similar ones were like it twists instead of like it still sounds very similar to me. And Barr mentioned the iconic nature of his. Again, I'm not a Saw fan, so I don't know how important it is that the character learned a lesson from it. It didn't sound overly important to me, and the fact that both of the characters wound up dying later anyway sort of negated that, so that's why I gave it to Barr.
Brian.
Yeah, so you go into a Saw movie knowing what you're going in for. You watch a Saw movie for a certain thing. I mean, that Saw and Hostel together kind of created the torture porn genre. So people start talking about, which ones had the most effect on the people and which ones are most effective traps, things like that. For both sides, so for me, that went out the window. I think what won it for me was Richard, when he basically was talking about how in his trap, you're feeling each break, you're feeling the pain, you're feeling the torture until it finally kills him. Whereas, with Andrews, it would just be like instant done. Which, for people going to watch a Saw movie, you're there to watch him suffer.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this franchise. I'm glad somebody picked it because I got to write a question about it. I weirdly love this franchise very much. And so I guess it's me and Brian against Nick today. I said, may the Schwartz be with you. I went with Richard mostly. There is a lot to do with like the saving a life, appreciating life stuff, and I thought Richard hit the notes of like what the traps mean and what they do, and how Barr said like his trap worked. I thought Richard very effectively proved why it in fact did not. So in the long run of the franchise. So, and I also agree with Brian that while I agree with Nick that I liked the point that Barr said about his trap being iconic, because arguably it is the most iconic in the franchise, I thought Richard did a really good job of leaning into the what people go to these movies for, and the high that the rack trap is, in my opinion as well, the most disturbing trap in the whole series. So that hit really hard for me. So give it to Richard. Richard's up 2-1 as we get into the final prep question. Barr needs to hit this to send it to overtime. If he misses it, Richard will be the winner. And the question is in the category of Jimmy B, my favorite, James Bond. The question is, what is the funniest one-liner from a James Bond movie? So, Barr, you drafted this. You get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
She always did enjoy a good squeeze. That was just, I was laughing my ass off when I heard that line in GoldenEye. Look, Pierce Brosnan delivers that line so perfectly. The timing, the cadence, and just the build up to that joke is also perfect. Just the way that she dies, combined with that line, combined with like her manic energy versus his calm, is such a great hysterical contrast that there's no other line in the franchise that has topped this one before or after. And with that, I yield my time.
Okay. Richard, you now have 1 minute when you start talking.
This is really hard for me because I'm not a huge Bond fan, haven't seen many films. So I chose a one-liner line from the movie Thunderball. Sean Connery is Bond in this. He is escaping people who's trying to kill him into a club. A woman who's trying to have Bond dead, captured, starts dancing with Bond. Her bodyguards are about to shoot him. He turns, the bullet shoots the lady, kills her. So what does Sean Connery do? Grabs the dead woman, puts her in a table next to these random couple, and what's his line? Mind if my friend just sits this one out? She's too dead. And that made me chuckle because he just quietly walked away with no regard. It was just a perfect way he said it, perfect way he left it, and I think it's the funniest one-liner. And I concede the rest of my time.
Okay. Why did I take you out? That doesn't make sense. Okay, you guys have when one of you starts talking. Sorry, geez.
It's been a while since I've seen GoldenEye. You know, like I said, I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I watched that scene quite a few times. I wouldn't say it was funny, because for me being dumb, like the way she died, the helicopter, not squeezing, but like kind of like pressing her against the tree. I was more like confused why that helicopter was like the way it was moving, and not really focusing on that line, because like it came off like, okay.
So because you watched the scene out of context means that it doesn't work. Okay. So
I've seen the movie. I know like she's the Russian.
Right, but the helicopter gets like damaged, and that's what leads to it. But also she kills people by wrapping her legs around them and just like suffocating them to death. So to have that contrast between how she kills people versus how she's killed, it's just like this hilarious irony. Plus, as I said, Brosnan's delivery of it is just pitch perfect. There's a slight cocky smile to it, and he's so sure of himself, which makes it a lot funnier. Whereas yours is just like an old dad joke that's been told since maybe the 40s.
Really? Because I haven't heard anyone say like she's just too dead. But I'm going to say what yours just seems too on the nose, and you might find it funny. I just feel like people would probably saw it coming, would kind of guess that line, and not be as funny as, okay, we kind of saw that coming. Whereas mine, like, he told the truth to an unsuspecting couple, and he just the way he delivered it and the way he just left afterwards is just freaking hysterical. Just the looks on that couple's faces just after he leaves, it's priceless. It's hysterical.
So this, as I said, this joke has been done for years. Commando does this joke better, and with him on the plane going, "My friend, he's just dead." Plus, you also misquoted yours. It's mind if my friend sits one out? She's just dead. So you don't even remember your own quote correctly.
Well, I said she's just dead, or what did I say? Too dead.
Too dead.
She's just dead. It's fine. Again, you can't hit on me for not being a huge Bond fan. That's not a hit on me. That's just me misquoting half the time. And like yours, again, your quote sounds too on the nose. It's like Mr. Freeze and Batman and Robin. Just chill. I think yours has done when they just done too much gimmicks, too much lines that fit the gimmick. It's way too on the nose. Mine was clever.
You don't think yours is on the nose? You just pointed out the fact that she is dead. That's
yeah, but
nose.
The difference between mine on the nose than your on the nose is the couple does not know what's going on, does not know she's actually dead. So that it says when you have people who are unsuspecting to what's happening, yeah, it makes the scene funnier. Whereas yours is with, I believe, Natalia. That's correct. The other person with him.
Yes.
I mean, they both saw what happened, and I mean, even she was more in shock. Like, and honestly, I don't think Pierce Brosnan delivered it too great. Sean Connery delivered that line way better than Pierce Brosnan did.
Really, Sean Connery kind of rushed through his. But also, I would like to say something. Can you repeat your quote for me, please?
Mine if my friend just sits this one out, she's too dead. No, she's just dead. Sorry.
Question mark. First of all, that's 2 lines. That's not a one-liner. So, whereas mine, the buildup is great because you have this great comedic dynamic between this manic, kind of crazy assassin and calm, cool Bond. And once he gets the edge over her, he starts to have this kind of like this fun with it.
First of all, we're not worrying about what's 1 or 2-liner. Your Audrey Hepburn film wasn't even an Audrey Hepburn film. She was in the scene for 2 scenes. If mine gets accepted, if yours gets accepted, leave it on. That's not a point if it's a 2-liner.
I'm just pointing it out.
So your movie for Audrey Hepburn didn't even feature her. It wasn't her movie. She was in 2 scenes.
She's featured.
Yeah, so that means nothing when it comes to the argument. And like I say, yours wasn't even that funny. It was just too on the nose, and a lot of people probably saw it coming. And she always did like good squeeze. Yeah, that line has been played out too in other movies and other things. It's an old dad joke too. Don't talk about dad jokes. Name a movie
that line is also used in.
Name a movie where mine was used in. Name a movie that mine was. Commando. I've never seen that movie, so how am I supposed to know?
Well,
I haven't seen many movies. She always like a good squeeze because I know there has been TV shows and movies that have used a very similar line.
Well, until you point out one of those, I'm not gonna believe you.
Again, I think mine was way more funnier because unsuspecting moment for a person who didn't know what's going on, whereas yours is too on the nose.
Richard, you get to close first. You got a minute when you start talking.
My opponent is saying, like, first of all, I misquote my thing. Sure, why not? I'm not a huge Bond guy. I misquotes all the time. Doesn't make it any less funny. His is, like I said, it was too on the nose. He talked about that character liking to squeeze people. It comes off very cringy, like the Mr. Freeze chill, or just anyone who likes to use puns. Whereas mine, if my friend just sits this one out, she's just dead. The way he delivered it was classic. For 2 people who did not know what's going on, if you watch that and you saw how he delivered that line, it is way funnier than the way Pierce Brosnan delivered it. It came off just very blah. I don't think Pierce Brosnan delivered it well. Just because my opponent can name a movie that probably has a similar line, it's not the exact line. Cool. Why not? But mine is still way funnier than his. I concede the rest of my time.
All right. We will go to Barr. Barr, 1 minute when you start talking.
So she's just dead is not a pun. I think that there's something wrong with that personally. But the thing that makes mine funnier is Pierce Brosnan's delivery and the joy that he has. Movies do kind of make these kind of jokes, but he plays it so deadpan, and to see this kind of like enjoyment of him being able to say that actually brings a lot of extra humor to it, as well as the context and the build up to it. But also just like, mind if my friend sits down out, she's just dead. I've heard this before. It's an old vaudevillian joke, actually, from the 20s, if I'm not mistaken. Other movies, Connery's rushing through that line, so you don't really catch it the first time. And I also have someone in my scene who doesn't realize what's going on technically, so null and void. I yield my time.
Okay. Let me bring in the judges.
Is it my connection or was Barr freezing up during the closing?
Yeah, it was he was freezing up.
It was Barr.
Oh, shit.
It doesn't affect my vote. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I got what he was saying from it.
I thought it was my connection too. I was like, crap.
No, you're good. You're good. How we doing, judges?
I'm ready.
All right. I think I go first on this one. And I thought this was bad. I'm not going to lie. I thought this was a rough fight. I thought they've all been pretty good so far. This one was a little rough. There were so many semantics. Like Barr trying to like bring down because it was 2 sentences versus a lot. Like, get the fuck out of here. But also like, but then Richard was like, name a movie, and then Barr did. So it's like, it's just some bullshit.
That's how me and Andrew roll. Bad.
To me, I honestly flip a coin, but at the end of the day, what I latched onto was Richard leaned more to me in about why his was funny and how it made him laugh. And like how it was just like a very like Bond thing, and the way Connery delivered it was great. And so I went with Richard, but I don't know. Nick.
I had a joke thing I was gonna say, but I think I'll say a real thing. I agree that I think Richard touched more on the funny of it. Barr may have been able to quote another movie where someone jokes about someone else being dead, but then Richard at the end was like, who cares? It's not the same line. I'm sure it's been used before. He hit on how Barr's was a little cheesier in like in an obvious way, I guess. Like, oh, she squeezes people. Get it? Like, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the joke thing I was going to say that was the second bar was like, well, that's 2 sentences. I stopped listening, but I didn't actually stop listening. I kept listening, but then I voted for Richard.
All right. Brian, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I thought this was the most decisive of all the matches, and I gave it to Barr. For me, I thought that, well, for starters, when Richard misquoted his own quote in the opening, I was going to let that go because that's not a factor. But then when Barr picks up on it and says it's so not memorable, even you can't remember it. I mean, that was a good point to me. I also like the way you talked about how it was the contrast and the irony of the scene in the way that Brosnan delivered it. Yeah, so I thought Barr had it easily, but apparently I'm in the minority. So.
Yep. All right. Well, that means your winner, Richard Schwartz, will be moving on. We're going to first talk to Barr. Barr, you didn't pull out this one, but you played very well. It's a lot of split decisions in this match. Were all of them split decisions?
Yes.
Damn. Okay, that's kind of wild. That hasn't happened in a long time. So, Barr, how are you feeling?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little disappointed. I knew I was gonna lose the Saw one. That one I was like, I don't care. Like that one I'm totally gonna lose. Richard's a very good player. I'm not gonna take anything away from him. I'm just a little disappointed is all.
It's fair. We've all been there. I understand. But if it's any consolation, you played very, very well. I'm excited to have you back. If you come back, if you want to come back, we'll have you back. And I'm excited to see what you do next because I do think you are very good at this. But thank you for being here today, Mr. Barr. Great job. Let's move over to the winner. Richard, you won the match. You won both points that were not yours. You won both of Barr's questions. How do you feel?
I feel good. I like winning, but at the same time, like I was hoping to get the Audrey Hepburn because that was the one I felt more confident in for Andrew's questions. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I thought Barr had that last one in my opinion, but I'm not going to say nothing because I want to win. A lot of people keep it shh. But again, Andrew's a hell of a fighter, and I would love to fight him again. Hopefully he would pick other questions that would be more nice to me, and I would pick him more topics more nice to him. But it was a good match. I look forward to my next one. And hopefully for my next match, whatever that is, I will be more prepared and more rested. Because like I said, I always have trouble with words, the way I deliver it. But this was the one match where I felt least prepared out of all the matches I've ever done. But next match, I won't be that less prepared.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Richard, congrats. We'll see you very soon with your next match. That's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Nick and Brian for helping out with this one by judging. Thank you to Barr. Thank you to Richard for playing and making a great match out of this one. So we will see you real soon with the next match. Until then, have a good one.
That's my bad. I was sending a tweet.